Because one thing I know and two things for sure, you were not going back home.
No.
We may have been in Fort Lauderdale for our vacation for the next 4 days.
It was too cold. Florida had this cold front.
But we were not, we had already determined we were not going home. We were going to have a vacation somewhere.
Yep.
We were going to be together. That's all that mattered anyway, right?
Yep. So I'm going to emphasize something from the last episode, guys, because it bears repeating. I said, look, when problems arise, because they will, 1, stay positive. 2, ask yourself, what people can you use as resources? Because sometimes people are like, I got to figure. No, you don't have to figure it out all alone.
That's true. We had some friends that helped us out. Definitely.
Right. So but people don't think about that sometimes. They're trying to handle it on their own, but there's resources. There are other people that you can count on.
If you're a go-getter, faith-driven, and family-focused, and need to break through to your next level, this is the podcast for you. Your self-talk can reshape every area of your life. It's time to dream and think big. Welcome to the Self-Talk Experience with Darnell and Tracy Self. It's time to elevate, baby. Let's get into the show.
Welcome, Self-Talk family. We're back, and guess who's back?
I'm back, guys. I'm sorry I missed you guys so much. I missed you last week.
We got the kids off to school.
We did. Everybody's doing great.
Yeah, everybody's doing great. And we missed you all because it's Thursday. So it's been a week since I've been with you all and 2 weeks since you all had T-Self here, our co-host.
No, it hasn't been 2 weeks.
You weren't with them last Thursday, so that means the Thursday before that.
I only missed one episode.
Right. So here we are this Thursday. Last Thursday you weren't with us. That's 1 week.
But I was there the week before that.
So that's 2 weeks.
What?
It's been like 14 days. 7 days was last Thursday. 7 more days is the Thursday before that.
Okay.
So 2 weeks. I know it's hard for you to imagine being away from the family for 2 weeks, but that's what it is. But you're back. You're here today. What you want to talk about?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
Listen, I told everyone last week that we should focus on solutions when there are perceived problems, but it's not always easy. And just as a reminder, everything happens for us, not to us. But it's hard sometimes when you're in the midst of something that you feel like, why is this happening to me?
Right.
To remind yourself that it's really happening for you when you can't see how it could be happening for you in that moment.
Right. And, you have the sayings and you say them and it feels great to say them when everything's going fine. But then when you really have to put it into action, it's not easy at all. Because it's easy to say, oh, it's okay. It's happening for you, not to you. Yeah. And when you're feeling great, you're like, I know, this is amazing. But when it's something that's a conflict, you're like, wait, I don't want to have this to be happening right now. Yeah. Right.
And so there's conditioning that has to happen. Just like we condition our muscles, whether it be biceps, quads. Hey, by the way, audience doesn't know you've been waking up at like 5 a.m. to go work out. This is the new year, 2023. T-Self's on another mission.
Well, you know what they say.
What's that?
Another saying. Summer bodies are made in the winter. Can't wait till May when you book the trip and you leave next week to go to the gym. So here we are.
There you go. So look, it goes right along with what we're saying because it takes conditioning so that when that thing happens, you're like, it's all good. It's happening for me. Because in that moment, if you haven't been conditioning your mind and you haven't been having that self-talk, it's even harder.
And the more you do it, it gets easier and easier.
That's very true.
I'm sure.
That's very true.
Right?
Yep. So last week I said that we would wait for you to talk about this trip that had all types of hiccups.
Oh my gosh, our family trip.
Yes. So talk about this. So we planned this trip for Makai's graduation from undergrad and going into grad school with the 6 of us.
Yes, just the 6 of us, our immediate family in our household. So it was so fun. But this is the thing. It was supposed to be a family trip, but I have now coined it as the self-family adventure because it was an adventure. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So T-Self did all the planning. So of course she had a level of expectation because she had booked the day party, booked the days we were going to go to the I think it's called the Jungle Gym out on the beach in Tulum.
Every dinner was scheduled. Everything was done. I had been working on this for months. I had the whole itinerary every day. And it did not go as planned.
So this is what happened. So first of all, disappointment comes from an unmet expectation. I once heard it said this way: blessed is he who has no expectations, because he'll never be disappointed. No, that's, just a play off of that, because of course we're going to have expectations. Of course you expect that this year is going to be better than last year. Right. Of course you expect to be in greater health and to have better relationships. So, it's a play off of that says basically, if you don't ever want to be disappointed, just don't have any expectations. And
that's no way to be.
That's no way to be, right? So you had all the expectations because you had set all this stuff up that we didn't even know about.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you were left to have the biggest disappointment because you had the greatest expectation.
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Because no one else knew what to expect or what was coming.
Right.
But I knew it was going to, we're going to miss this, or we're not going to be able to do this.
Right.
And I really wanted to do this, and they would have really enjoyed this. But you guys were none the wiser.
Yeah. None the wiser. You were really 52.
Well, no, I'm not 52, actually. Wait a second. Why are you?
Next month.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Our 30-year-old audience, have you ever heard none the wiser? You're like, they were none the wiser.
Well, I'm sure our children, I'm sure I've said it.
I bet they have. Listen, I can't wait for the comments when this episode comes out, because none the wiser. I haven't heard that in forever.
Old school thing to say?
I think it is.
Oh.
Anyway, so they were none the wiser. Keep going. I'm sorry. So,
well, like you said, you can't be disappointed if you didn't expect it.
Right.
Right?
Right. So I want to talk about this because it was disappointment after disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. I mean, all day long. And we really had to work on our own. I mean, we host the self-talk experience, and we had to really intentionally work on our self-talk.
Well, yes, I had planned everything. No, I don't think you understand. Our flight was Wednesday morning. My trip started Tuesday because I made this big dinner. Everybody was going to spend the night so we could fly together, big sleepover with all the kids as adults. So that part went fine.
Right.
We had dinner. Dinner was great.
What did you make for dinner?
Well, it was requested that I make collard greens and fried chicken, even though I don't eat chicken. I don't eat. Everyone else in the house enjoys chicken. And I made mashed potatoes. It was this big thing. Everybody was here. Everybody was happy. We spent the night. We woke up. And I think the kids didn't even go to sleep. They were so excited.
Right.
They didn't even go to sleep. We had to be at the airport at 6:20. We got there.
We're calling them kids, but I mean, it's 20 to 32 years old. So they're young adults. But we still call them kids.
But we got to the airport. Everybody was excited. We got to the airport on time. And then we got to check in. And they said, oh, your flight is delayed. We said, okay, no worries.
Right.
It was maybe delayed, maybe like 20 minutes or something. And we had a layover, so I was a little concerned about the layover, but I figured we'll be okay.
Right.
It's a 20-minute delay.
Right. And then we learned that the FAA grounded all flights in the United States of America that Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. So every single airplane was on the ground. Now, from what I understand, earlier that morning, like really early, flights took off.
Right. So we would have had an earlier flight,
right?
Like just an hour earlier. Nothing.
Right. Now we're at the airport at 6 a.m., by the way. So this is already early. Mm-hmm. Our flight took off, I think, at 7 something. Yeah, so 8:10. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So check this out, guys. Here's the point of remembering that everything happens for you, not to you. So it's delay after delay after delay. And then we start to realize we're not going to make our connecting flight.
Well, no, I didn't realize that because remember I said because our flight's off, we figured if all flights were grounded. So our layover wasn't going to be able to take off. That would be delayed as well.
Right.
So we figure, okay, well, as long as we're delayed, everything will still be okay because everything will be delayed.
Right.
So we finally boarded. We were in the airport for like 6 hours, maybe.
Yep.
So we finally boarded. We were all happy. You could hear different people at different gates like cheering because I guess their flights were starting to take off. That's how long everybody was in the airport. So we are on our flight, and as soon as we land for the layover, of course, I'm like looking to see what time the layover leaves. And I look, and it says our layover has taken off. It took off like 30 minutes before we landed.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
But I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll just get to our destination a little bit later. We will just get on a different flight.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there were no more flights out that day. to where we were going.
Yep.
And they said they'd be happy to rebook us. Remember, it's Wednesday. They said they'd be happy to rebook us to get to our destination on Saturday.
Right. And we were supposed to depart on Sunday to come back home because the kids had to get back to college.
Right. So we couldn't even extend the trip on the back end.
Right. So all this is happening. How are you feeling about this at that moment?
I'm trying really hard to keep my spirits up, but on the inside, I want to just cry because I'm like, okay, so there's no way we're going to be able to make this trip. We're not going to be able to go.
Right.
So I knew that we had to do something. But the great part about this whole story is from the beginning, when we were in the airport for 6 hours, not knowing about the layover, anything, everyone was so happy. They were happy to be together. They fell asleep. They woke up. They went to get something to eat. They were laughing. They were running around in the airport.
Right.
I'm the one that was freaking out because I had my level of expectation. They were just so happy to be together and going on a trip.
Right.
Right.
So here's my first point. My first point is put yourself around people who think about the positive side. And we've talked about this, the glass half full, because if our kids were half empty mindset kids, they would have said, I can't believe this. And that would have caused even a greater level of disappointment for you.
Right.
Because then you would have felt like you were disappointing them.
Yeah, but on the flip side, it was hard for me to go in the wrong direction because I'm looking at everyone else, 5 other people, including you, were so excited and happy. So it's hard for me to go the other way. Like, I think I need to be on their side.
That's my point. That's my point, right? Yeah, absolutely. So if you're around people, because it's so easy to be around people like, I can't believe this is happening to us. We had plans to be, and they could just repeat what you already knew.
Yeah.
Like, you had this scheduled and this is not going to happen, and telling you all the things you can't do anything about. And we've talked about this on several episodes. Right? Why continue to bring up things that you have absolutely no control? We had no control over the day party, all the stuff you'd set up, right? But we did have control over what the solution would be.
Right.
So I started making calls to contacts I had. We started asking the people at the ticket counter, what are the options? And we started talking about, we were in Fort Lauderdale. We were asking, hey, look, can I get to Memphis? Can I get to Houston? I'm thinking, what's closer to Mexico than here?
Right.
Than Fort Lauderdale. And if we can get to Phoenix, if we can get to Houston, maybe we can just fly in from there the next day. They were like, there's nothing. Literally. So I'm exhausting. By the way, I know we talk about business a lot and financial wherewithal a lot, because I know a lot of our audience are either budding entrepreneurs, or those who have made a decision that they want more out of life, right? More financial flexibility. Let me just say this, that some of the decisions we were able to make did come about because we weren't necessarily worried about the costs associated with them. So we have to at least admit to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because some of it was like, all right, well, if we do this and do this, they were like, well, we don't know if we can credit your flight because you're already taking half of the flight. And we were like, we'll worry about that later. I know that Tracy Self will be on it, talking to the airline and making that happen. But eventually, after all this is happening, they were like, listen, the only other option is we can fly you back home. You can try to figure it out once you get back home. We knew that wasn't going to work because I'd already checked all the flights back out of Maryland, out of Baltimore.
Right.
So this whole time we're having to think, okay, well, solution. And people around us, there were people crying because there were like 25 of us.
Yeah, they left 20. It wasn't just us. There were about 25 to 30 people on that flight that were supposed to be on that layover. They just left all those people.
Yeah. And so there were people who I felt like, man, I just need to let them know that there's a Self-Talk Experience podcast that can help.
I felt bad. It was one
some of the
young lady's birthday. She was very disappointed.
Yeah, she was very disappointed. Yeah. And so there were people like, what are we going to do? Let's just go back home, maybe the next time. But then they were talking about how they would have to schedule time off of work again and how, they had already taken time off. I mean, it was a lot of conversation happening.
Yeah.
So, but we kept thinking, this is happening for us. And I didn't know why at that moment.
Yeah. And then we started thinking of different destinations.
Right.
So we thought of all these different destinations, but that particular airline still couldn't do it.
Right.
So we said, okay, well, what about a different destination and a different airline?
Yeah.
Because one thing I know and two things for sure, you are not going back home.
No.
we may have been in Fort Lauderdale for our vacation for the next 4 days.
It was too cold. Florida had this cold front.
But we were not, we had already determined we were not going home. We were going to have a vacation somewhere.
Yep.
We were going to be together. That's all that mattered anyway, right?
Yep. So I'm going to emphasize something from the last episode, guys, because it bears repeating. I said, look, when problems arise, because they will, 1, stay positive. 2, ask yourself, what people can you use as resources? Because sometimes people are like, I got to figure. No, you don't have to figure it out all alone.
That's true. We had some friends that helped us out. Definitely.
Right. So but people don't think about that sometimes. They're trying to handle it on their own, but there's resources, there are other people that you can count on that can help you, Janelle. So sometimes I'm just saying that sometimes, we're like lone wolves. You're like, I got this because I'm an independent woman.
Yeah, but there, in all fairness, there are a lot of people out there that just have that personality, and they're always the ones in their particular circle or in their life that are the problem solvers. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard for them to take that hat off and look to someone else. Yep. Just like the people who are the opposite, who never do anything, who are never the problem solvers, who always look to somebody else. It's hard for them to put the hat on and say, you know what? I think I need to do this myself this time. Right. I can do it.
Right.
So, and again, that's a whole nother conversation, right?
Yep. No, it's true. It's true. So, so we were resourceful. We called Candace, who helped us out with travel and giving us some options.
Yes.
I called Lauren because I knew she worked for Southwest. So I'm like calling folks, trying to figure it all out, seeing who can help us. So long story short, because I want to get to how this happened for us and not to us, but it didn't show up right away. Remember, when it's happening for you, the reason that it happened for you doesn't always show up right away, but I need you to continue to condition yourself that it's happening for me. It's happening for me. I may not know why right now. I may not know that I avoided an accident, avoided a shark attack in Mexico, so I had to go to a different place.
Not a shark attack.
I'm just saying. Who knows? I don't know. I'll never know some of the reason why.
No, we were not supposed to be there.
Yeah, you're walking down some steps and it was slippery, and because it rained one day in Mexico, and now you fell and you twisted your wrist.
Oh, wow.
That's too much. I'm just saying. But you'll never know.
We will not.
Unless because you could showed up with a cast on this episode and be like, yeah, guess what happened while we were in Tulum. But you avoided that.
I did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Darnell.
So look, check this out, y'all. We said, all right, I'm going to check with some other airlines. But we were hungry. We've been in the airports all day at this point. So it's like 7 p.m. now.
So we started at 6 a.m. We were eating chips.
Yes.
It was but again, the kids were so happy. They were like, what kind of chips did you get? Oh, can I go back and get and I'm sitting there, the tears are right here. They're right here. They're right here. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be okay. And they were like, Mom, it's okay. We're fine.
Yep. So we figured out a flight that took us from Fort Lauderdale past our home, which is in Maryland, to Philadelphia on an airline I've never taken before, which I won't even name, but they charge for everything. Every bag, water, stuff. I'm like, why is it $900 for bags? It was ridiculous.
It was craziness.
So even though the flights were cheap, then by the time you added bags and ice on the plane, it was like, dude. Anyway, so we got up to Philly at midnight, got a hotel right there at the airport, slept for 5 hours, got back on the flight, and ended up in Jamaica the next day at
11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Yes, but also in the midst of all this, so they said we went to a whole other terminal with our bags. Right. We walked outside.
We had to walk 3 terminals.
And we had 7 bags between the 6 of us. Okay. Don't ask why. So we get to the other terminal. So then they're like, okay, we can get you to Jamaica, but once we check your bags in while you're here in Florida, they're going to go straight to Jamaica.
Right.
But we were going to Philly first.
Right.
So we had to stand there and go. I said, okay, everybody grab some fresh undergarments and stuff. We're going to get a shower and put these clothes back on.
Right.
Because that airline would have charged us another $500 to carry another carry-on bag on the plane, which was crazy. So we grabbed stuff. They took our luggage, and we got in an Uber and went to dinner in Florida.
Yeah, we went to dinner,
lovely.
Which was great because the 6 of us had never had that experience at Fogo de Chao, I think it's called. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So together. So that was great. And it's funny because sidebar, Rayvon, our oldest, was outside doing business while we're eating because he was taking care of some business he had where he was earning income while we were at dinner. And I thought to myself, man, when I was 32, that was me missing dinner with the family, building the empire that we have today.
Yeah, and the siblings were like, look at you out there being dad.
Right. So that was so cool. But again, that was an experience we wouldn't have had.
Yes, absolutely.
And they had a ball. We have memories from that night at dinner, right? So that was great. And then when we made it to Jamaica, this is another part, guys. I'm telling you, there's so many things that could have, for the average person, I think, who probably looks at, this will never happen. I don't know if we can make it happen. I think would have said, just don't do it. Because even in Jamaica, the property that we found, there was a big suite for us that was available. That was all that was available. And the suite for the kids that was available was only available for 2 of the days. And one of the days it was not available. Right.
But also, we're so crazy and so confident. We booked the flight to Jamaica before we had accommodations in Jamaica. We were like, oh, okay, so we have our flight. So now we need to find somewhere to stay.
Yes, that's what we did. And then we started looking around for somewhere to stay. And so anyway, long story short is we got there. We had an amazing time, amazing memories. Yes. We did get accommodations.
Beautiful accommodations.
Yeah, in fact, the night that wasn't available, the kids ended up getting a swim out room. Like we just continue to push. It's like, if that didn't work, because they was like, there's no room, sir. And I said, okay, so is there any way that my kids can get a room in the connecting property? Because this particular property has 2 sides to it. Let me check. And I said, it would mean the world to me. My son is going for his master's. We're here to celebrate him, whatever we have to do. She was like, all right, let me work. And she worked it out for us. And that was awesome. They ended up with butlers and everything.
Oh, yes. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And, after I took a minute to think about it, I'm thinking to myself, why am I so upset that this is not happening the way I wanted it to happen or the way I envisioned it happening? Because at the end of the day, the end of the story is I'm going to be with my family, safe somewhere.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of switch, like, it's okay. It's just going to be a different experience. And maybe we'll do that again one day. Maybe we never will.
Yeah.
But the point is, sometimes you're so stuck in wanting things to go exactly how you wanted it, exactly how you think it's supposed to be. And the outcome could actually be just as good or better.
Right.
But in the moment, you just have to take a second and realize that.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
And I had to do that because I was there in the airport on the verge of tears, and one of our sons said, Mom, this is okay. You can't be upset that we're going to end up somewhere together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I know, but I had to. He said, hey, it's okay. Whatever we had, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to work out, and everything was great. So when it's happening for you, you have to just let it happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, and this is a first world challenge, by the way.
Absolutely.
I get that.
Absolutely.
Because I know somebody's watching is like, really? Like, you couldn't go to Tulum. There's somebody who can't eat. There's always somebody who's like going to take it down to a level.
Oh, yeah,
like
but I know. But just
kids.
get the message for what it is, right?
Exactly. And that's why I'm going to prove a point. And we talked about this in an earlier episode, Connecting the Dots, that there's some things that happen in Jamaica that could have impacted someone else's life, had nothing to do with the 6 of us, that we'll never know, because we were able to meet people like on the side of the road when we went to that one spot.
Yes.
And some of the relationships that we were building in the small businesses that we supported, we would not have supported in that way if we weren't there. And that could have paid that small business's rent.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is some of this, we'll never know that it happened not just for us, but because God was orchestrating something else. And we were impacting some other people's lives that we met and were able to bless while we were there in Jamaica. And we wouldn't have been able to bless them in that way if we weren't there. And maybe it blessed them, which is going to bless their child, which is going to bless an education for that child, which they wouldn't have had if we wouldn't have gone to Jamaica instead of Tulum. So it could be so much bigger than us. So sometimes we just need to be grateful and thankful that we're in a position that we are still healthy and that we can still breathe and that we still have, I feel like I'm really old school like my mom now. We have the ability of our limbs. That's my mother would say.
So
that's what my mother would say.
Well, you sound 53.
I am. So So just know that in certain situations, I must admit, it is hard to tell yourself this is happening for you, especially when there's a high level of disappointment attached. But again, if you try to stay positive, have some good people around you, be resourceful, look at the issue holistically, right? From a larger scope and not just one-sided. Sometimes you see things you wouldn't have seen because you're not stuck in that it just didn't happen or happened for me or to me, not for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Self-Talk. We hope this story, this journey, this adventure to Jamaica allows you to perhaps see how you too can look at things that are actually happening for you, even when you think they're happening to you. Remember, the things we say to ourselves about ourselves eventually determines what we attract for ourselves. See you next time.
And we got invited. Well, we crashed a wedding while we were in Jamaica. We would have never.
I didn't crash it. You all crashed it.
We would have never been able to go to a wedding, but we went to a wedding. So happy 2-week anniversary, Q and Tiff.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Talk Podcast with Darnell and Tracy Self. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. And we'll see you next time. And remember, talk good to yourself.